Welcome to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast. Thanks for joining us on the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast today. We are absolutely thrilled to be joined by a biophilic aficionado who lives and breathes biophilia, Steve Nygren. He's founder and CEO of Serenbe, which is that beautiful biophilic community leading the wellness, real estate, and agrihood movements. Serenbe is in the Chattahoochee Hills in Georgia, America, and this is where Bill Browning and Terrapin Bright Green had a head office, which a lot of people might know about. And also many of the board members of the Biophilic Institute reside at Serenbe. And I know Steve is also the chair of the board too. There's lots to talk about. And you also have an interesting life story. You've got a brilliant new book out in October. It's called Start in Your Own Backyard, which we're going to be touching on as well. And that's to inspire everybody to make change wherever you are and things that you might not even thought about. So we're going to talk about Serenbe. So first of all, Steve, many thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for the invitation to have this conversation.
Amazing. Well, I mean, gosh, there are 1,001 questions I can ask you, Steve, and I actually was out there for the Biophilic Leadership Summit, and it is a beautiful place. But before we just talk about that, I want to learn a little bit about you, if that's all right. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about your journey, maybe, to Serenbe?
Certainly, always happy to share and reflect back. Well, I'm come from a generational farm family, Scandinavian, who settled Boulder County, Colorado in the 1800s. And so I have cousins scattered all along the Front Range of Colorado, and I was one of the few who actually left. I could hardly wait to get away from the farm and headed to the university to become an architect. Got sidetracked into the hospitality industry. And then after several years with a major hospitality company opening hotels, they moved me to Atlanta to open a hotel, and I fell in love with that city in the early 70s. And so stepped off the corporate treadmill to open my first restaurant, and then spent the next 22 years building that to a hospitality company in 8 states, 36 operations. When a weekend, in the midst of doing that, we had a weekend drive on the edge of Atlanta, just 30 minutes outside the city, to see a historic farm that was advertised for sale. Now, I was clear that we weren't interested in buying anything, but our children were 3, 5, and 7, and we'd love to show them farm animals. And of course, when we called, anyone for sale says, "Come on." And we arrived, the Shetland pony was saddled, and we bought the farm. I had no idea what that was going to mean. We rented the historic house out. My wife fixed the shack in the back in case we ever wanted to spend the night. I thought we'd come down a couple Saturday afternoons a month. But we found the family wanted to spend every weekend and every vacation in the shack where we had no toys except a puzzle for rainy days. And we had a grand house in the city with the pool and all the trappings that you think a child absolutely has to have. And in that 3-year journey, I found that none of the material things were really important. And I saw how we all responded when we connected back to nature. And that was my value shift. A lot of people thought I was crazy when we sold everything and moved to the farm. But now, in a post-pandemic period, I think a lot of people went through that same self-evaluation of what is really important in life. And so it's a lot easier for people to understand that journey I made. But then, as we were in the 6th year of retirement, having a grand time, I could take the kids to Europe or on travels for a month. Life was great. I was not in search of anything. But the threat of urban sprawl destroying this rural paradise that we had found prompted me to relook at what development patterns were like, and why we had this sprawl development that really did not seem to be addressing people's vitality. We, no one seemed to quite be happy. And I realized we were developing shelter. We were not developing communities or places for people to really thrive. And a lot of issues that have led to that in the United States and around the world, they're very similar. And so, as a developer by default, I stepped into this and realized when I looked at models that many times models actually started destroying the area around them if their success happens before people understand what the principles are. And so I spent 2 years bringing 500 landowners together to relook at 60 square miles. And together we came up with a new vision modeled very much on the countryside of England and the English land laws that were put in place following World War II, to where you can put a lot of density in the hamlets, villages, and towns, but you still maintain a rural character to the landscape. And so that was our model. And we moved forward to pass that zoning in 2002. We broke ground on Serenbe in 2004. And while the financial markets, the real estate markets all called me crazy, I think they were a little plighter in what they said, but that's basically what it was saying. But we found the market responded very well, and we started selling rapidly. And so it shows that if something isn't presented to people, the analyst can't determine whether it's it's needed or wanted. And so if you're being a progressive person in a lot of these spaces, you just have to plow ahead under your own self-confidence that this is needed and this does address people's needs.
Absolutely.
So
And
here we are now.
yeah, exactly. And
20 years later, from when people first started moving into the, out here in this woods, and now we have a thriving community with restaurants and coffee shops and art galleries, and our original home is now the Inn at Serenbe. And so we have about 1,200 people living here with us out here in the middle of the woods on the edge of Atlanta.
it's wonderful. It's really wonderful. And I love what you say there about, everybody thought you were nuts, but when you provide something for somebody, when you create something, if you believe in it and you're passionate about it, and then you put it out there, then people don't know they want it until they've got it, if you know what I mean. So, good for you for having that vision to create something. Can I ask you? We're going to talk about Serenbe and we're going to sort of drill down into that. And Serenbe is like the epitome of biophilic design. But why, for you right now, would you say biophilic design is really important? Why do we need to be spreading awareness of biophilic design globally, do you think?
Every day I'm reminded because my 7 grandchildren live here.
Mm.
And I'm embarrassed to think about the world that we are turning over to the future generations. I am the beneficiary of decisions that my ancestors made that allowed me to have this period in time. And I want my grandkids and their grandkids to look back and see us as more responsible rather than the selfish, short-sighted generation that I've seen evolved. I was the beginning of the baby boom generation, and we were going to solve everything with love, sex, and rock and roll. We're the same generation that became the greed generation of the 90s.
Mm. Yeah.
And now in these 30-year segments, I hope in this final 30-year segments that because we've lived the two extremes of that pendulum, maybe we can come back to balance and work with the young people. The 20-year-olds have lived in a fragile world, and they're much more aware of a lot of the issues and much more willing to step forward because they see it as their future. And if the baby boomers in their elderhood can meet these young people where they are and address these needs. And when you look at all the variety of needs, you bring it together, it's under one umbrella that can be identified as biophilic design and biophilic issues, which is global and human health.
Absolutely. It underpins everything, doesn't it? It's the living
It,
systems, living patterns for everything. It's flourishing and all sorts of things. So um
and not complicated if you boil it down and just look at it.
I know, I know, exactly. It's not rocket science, is it? You know?
No, no,
And I think when we met, I might have banged on about the fact that I often talk about when we're going to specify something to apply the biophilia concept, the biophilia hypothesis to every decision we make, whether it's specifying, purchasing, manufacturing, creating, whatever it is, planning. If is it to the detriment of life, then don't do it. But if it's going to enhance life and living systems and living patterns, then do it. That's
that's
it,
right.
really. Yeah.
Fairly simple when you look at it in those terms.
Totally, absolutely. Yes, I'm completely with you on that. And I do want to now talk about Serenbe because it is the most beautiful place. I wasn't sure what to expect when I went there. Obviously, I was there for the Biophilic Leadership Summit in April this year, which was amazing. So if anybody's listening to this, I do encourage you to go to the website and actually register as a newsletter so you can come along next year because it was absolutely brilliant, so inspiring. But it was held at your beautiful Serenbe. Can you tell us a little bit about what it looks like, what it is? I mean, you mentioned earlier on about, you got how many people there are and all this kind of thing, but I mean, it's really hard to describe. I mean, it's like a heartbeat for me. It's like a river. It's like a river with life, like that runs through it from top to bottom and inside and out, and all the animals and wildlife and biodiversity and all that good stuff. But from your perspective, I'd love to hear you describe the place for us.
Well, a moving river is a good analogy, and because you could look at any number of pictures of a flowing river, but unless you're sitting there on the banks, you don't
Mm,
understand the majestic of the sound
mm,
and the movement.
mm,
And that is what we found with Serenbe. No matter how many images or videos we put out, you feel it because if you've designed in relationship with nature, it's as much about the vibrational energy it is as it is the visual look of the place. And that is what it's hard for people to understand if they haven't visited. And once you visit, it's, oh, this feels different.
yeah.
uh, the people are reacting differently to me when I'm in this atmosphere, and it just is. So yes, it is a beautiful place. And as I mentioned, it's cluster development. So in the clustering, some of it is very dense. There'll be 15 to 17 separate housing units that are what we call fee simple. That means they're each footed in their own foundation and owned by a person. And so it's not like a stacked flats or anything like that. They're individual. So that's very dense and very walkable. Uh, but then there is natural nature within 450 feet of everyone's front or back door. So this is why it makes it so unique, because with that density, here you have nature all around you. And the first three communities are in these omega shapes. So it's these large horseshoes, if you will, with the houses and the commercial at the curved center. But so that means you have curving, winding streets, but it allows for a grid pattern for our pedestrian walkways. So you could imagine the two legs to a horseshoe, and so it's a bit of a distance from go around the curve. But if you're on foot, you can just cross over, and you cross over through nature from those two areas. So it's a fairly basic pattern and related to the topography of the Earth. And so that's the big thing is we look at is we walk the land. And if you really study your land, walk it, uh, take off your shoes, so your souls are literally connecting with nature. We find that the earth will inform you on the development pattern. And that's certainly what Phil Tabb and I did as we walked, and some of the conceptual ideas we had. We had both just returned from Italy, and so we envisioned some uh, walking hill towns and what have you. And once we really walked our land, we realized that it was much more about nestling the housing and the structures within the valleys, and to leave the ridges totally natural for public pathways and just viewing. And so a lot of times what you think it is, if you really can quiet yourself and listen, the answers are all out there.
That's lovely, and I wish I wish they would do that here. I wish they would do that everywhere. I think Serenbe is such a blueprint. I mean, really, and you know.
Well, that's the wonderful thing is we had to search a long ways for what I now call common sense. You
Mm,
know, and you look at 100 years ago in various parts of the world, this was much more normal.
mm,
You saw this in other places, and it's disappeared. And so this was my initial passion that we had to do it. We had to demonstrate that this could happen in this period of time. This wasn't about the patinas, the age of buildings. This could happen, and I'm delighted now that Serenbe serves as that model, where developers and governments are literally visiting us from all over the world every week. There's someone here from somewhere. One of the reasons I was running a little bit late today, as I was going out, someone introduced themselves. I had no idea they were here, and they're here investigating what we're doing. So that's the greatest thrill of all, is we are actually affecting change in various places.
and so you should. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful place. It uplifts the spirit, and as you say, it really is a feeling. For you, Steve. Obviously it's been your vision, it's been your life, it's been everything. Is there anything that for you, I mean, my question originally had been, what do you find surprising? But is there anything for you that you absolutely particularly love about Serenbe?
Well, the greatest joy that I never anticipated was that my daughters would all return
Ah,
and that my grandchildren would be on these streets that we're developing,
mm,
and their friends and all the people who are here. And when I became passionate about a different way of developing, I imagined the infrastructure. I imagined the houses. I imagined all of the various utilities, the importance that we include agriculture and arts and education. I could imagine all that and structure it. I never thought about who would move here. I never thought about the people. And it's rare that a week goes by that someone does not stop me. Some who've lived here for years, others who have been here a few weeks, and tell me how their life has changed for the better. And it's all things from health, relationships, their outlook on life. And wow, I never expected that. And how that brings a smile to my face every day. Well, the mornings you look at what needs to be done as we continue to move Serenbe forward.
mm,
That's my greatest reward of all: the laughter on the street, the smiles that I see from people, and the people that stop me and give me hugs on the street. Many developers say, "Oh my gosh, how can you possibly live in the community you built? Don't people bug you about what isn't right?" And I said, quite the opposite. It gives me a wind in my sails to hear the stories about people's lives.
mm. But that's absolute manifestation of the fact that you've done something right. You're creating something. You're doing it with nature. It supports life, and it's It's such a big.
And it's from my heart
Yeah.
rather than a logical place.
Mm,
And and if we follow what are they saying? Follow your heart.
mm.
Our mind was intended to be the logical organizer, not the person who moved us forward into these things. And I think we've gotten that a little mixed up.
It's so true. Um, but then again, I see that's what I love about biophilic design is that it sort of underpins. It's all this sort of it's all there's all this rigorous science that proves that nature's good for us and all this sort of stuff. But it underpins the fact that this thing is actually in our heart, that it's we are inherent, we are connected to nature. And I do want to talk about some of the random stuff that really surprised me when I was there. I was staying in one of the townhouses, and I love how they're built tall. So you have a view and there's natural light every single window. I mean, if anybody gets a chance to look at the designs of the houses, there's so much natural light. They're very eco-friendly. I mean, the sustainability angle is a humongous there. It's wonderful. But I was had one of those like egg chair things, which I absolutely love. So I look like Tweety Pie sitting in it. It's like my favorite space ever. But I remember just being on that veranda and looking out, and I had the trees behind me and a little sort of water stream, and the sound. And I just felt so calm. And the word, and you used it earlier, but the word was at home. I just felt at home, even though I was like 1,000 million miles away from here in the UK, and I was there. I just felt so connected, and it was so beautiful.
We are innately connected to nature,
Mm,
and we've totally not thought about that as we move forward. And of course, you see, there's so many aspects. And as you were talking, when you listen, you heard nature. Chances are you heard birds, you heard the breeze, because we're all geothermal. So we do not have the noise of air compressors and all the things that we have put in for our convenience, but they're noisy
mm,
and they affect our nervous system. And we forget how beautiful the sounds of nature are because generally they're drowned out in most of our urban areas.
That's absolutely true. And there's the peace that's there. You are just allowed to be, actually. Yeah.
And there you were in a townhouse in a very dense walkable group, and yet you totally were connected with nature and at peace.
Oh, it's just so beautiful. So beautiful. I mean, amazing, amazing design, fantastic concept, and bless you, Steve, for creating something and having that heart and the vision to do it. Yeah, and the bloody mindedness, which you must have, because you've got to have that to design and plow through with it. Really, we're going to talk about like challenges and stuff in a bit, but I do want to talk about a couple of surprising things. One was that like the mailboxes, so instead of having a letterbox through your door, you have the mailboxes somewhere else. So you have to go and walk there. A, that's well-being and wellness, but it's community as well. And I mean, that's just one little tiny thing, but that sums up the whole. For me, I always bang on about how biophilia is living systems and community and sociability. It's the livingness of life. You know.
That's a great point, and that was a very intentional issue for all those things. It naturally connects you. You run into your neighbors. There are more stories that it takes 2 hours to get their mail at Serenbe. Uh, and we've had friendships, travel groups, romances, all sorts of things happen on the way to get mail. And we try to locate them where people are going to gather for another reason. So it might be on the edge of a park, it might be on the edge of a coffee house. So there's a lot of people on their way to and from that general location for other reasons than just the mail, too.
See, that's lovely, isn't it? Well, that's just so clever. That's just such a lovely way of joining up. That's systems thinking. That's over and above everything else. That really is.
And plus, it promotes that lifestyle of activity and walking. Several people have stopped me and told me that they gave up diets years ago because they didn't work. And after living at Serenbe for X month, they started noticing that their clothes were loose. And they said it's just our natural lifestyle here. We're walking, we're exposed to healthy food. It's just a natural. We weren't thinking about it, and suddenly we're healthier.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful? I mean, imagine if like the whole, every single new build that we could do, any new design, we've got such a, diabetic, challenges and the healthcare, and it's so expensive and there's a drain, and it's just so worrying, isn't it, that people are overweight or just unfit and all the food that we're eating and our lifestyle. And there's another thing as well. We expect to park our car, right outside our door. But again, the cars are like the car park is not outside your house. It's
No.
you have to go and walk.
And people are not using their cars every day. So they don't have to be so convenient because they're not popping in them, go here and there and everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
It all fits together when you start dealing with it, but
Yeah,
we're so disconnected. It's crazy.
I know. It's the lovely ecosystem you've built there. Um, how does like the Biophilic Institute fit in with all this, and maybe Bill Browning was he involved, or I mean I know it was you and Phil Tabb, but what was the kind of like the sort of how it all fits together maybe? Where did it all come from?
Absolutely. A dear friend of mine was Ray Anderson.
Mm,
Ray formed Interface Carpet, which brought carpet squares to America.
mm,
And in his journey to investigate what they need to do to sell to environmental markets, someone suggested he read Paul Hawken's book, Natural Capitalism. And Ray realized that he was one of the polluters, having a big carpet company, and he called, and Paul Hawken came, and they developed a dream team. And Ray became the first U.S. industrialist to put his company on a carbon neutral footprint, and this was in the mid 90s. Now, he'd been a dear friend. In fact, his stepson's godfather to our now 38-year-old.
wow.
So it was at dinner one night that I was struggling with how we were going to save this rural landscape from traditional sprawl, that I asked Ray to please, introduce me to a savior. Certainly, all the smart people. There's got to be somebody out there that can help me do that. He was when the White House in the United States White House created the first Council on the Environment. He was the first chair, so he knew everybody who was in this environmental movement 30 years ago.
Mm,
And so Ray, in turn, asked the Rocky Mountain Institute to help. And Ray and the Rocky Mountain Institute assembled 23 thought leaders in September of 2000. Bill Browning was working with the Rocky Mountain Institute at the time and led our first charrette uh, back back 25 years ago now. Um, and it was Bill was the first person who mentioned to my ears biophilic design. It was a strange word that I had not heard before. But then, of course, I didn't know enough or understand it that was really my lead as I went into this. It was through the connections at the Rocky Mountain Institute that they introduced me to Phil Tabb. In fact, Bill had been a student for Phil Tabbs at the University of Colorado. And Phil, at that point, was on his way to head up the architectural department at Texas A&M. So that's that's how this all spooled together. But when you realize 25 years ago there were not that many people talking about biophilic design or even the environment. I mean, this is pre-LEED certification. This is their early development of that. People had not heard of any of these things. And so while there's a long way to go, we've come a long way in 25 years in public awareness.
yeah, absolutely. I think it's wonderful. I think the whole ethos and the inspiration of like the Biophilic Institute and Bill Browning's work and Katie's as well, and the fact that Serenbe is such a visual epitome of how a biophilic home,
That's right.
house, city, community should be done.
And by the way, very appropriate, Bill has now taken the chairmanship of the Biophilic Institute.
Oh, has he?
So I passed the gavel this year.
Ah. Oh, I must tap him up and say hi again. So, um, can I ask you a couple of practical questions,
Of
actually?
course.
So we people who are listening to this podcast, we get all sorts of people from architects to interior designers, we get real estate owners, we get just individuals and families and everybody working in the NHS and healthcare. And this is like a random sprawl of like amazing people that are really passionate about this connection and reconnection to nature and well-being and sustainability. If someone was thinking about doing something similar, they'd have to be completely loopy, I think, and mad and have that free spirit nature that you've got, I think. Um, but, what advice would you give them?
Well, I think we can demonstrate this as common sense. It's affecting the health, individual health, and climate health. It is not more expensive. Now, your various lines on a traditional spreadsheet might be very different. So you can't compare line to line. You have to look at the end of your cash flow. But if you do that, it's really not more expensive. Now, if we ever get to the point where we put the cost of poor health and can relate that to the place we live, then it's going to be such a no-brainer to do from an economic standpoint. But even though studies are coming out demonstrate we're no longer in this wilderness that we were 25 years ago, just searching for something. There is a lot of research and studies backing this up. But even so, regulatory and financial institutions are very slow to react. And so you are going to have to be prepared to be passionate about really bucking those two trends. But people are doing it, and the more of us that do it, the more it's becoming more standard. And this is why Serenbe, we stand and we are so delighted to talk to people like you, to share what's going on, to welcome visitors here. And we're trying to set things up so if we can't actually spend the time with every person, to where there's self-discovery, such as the biophilic room, you can totally self-discovery there. And so no matter what your level of interest is, we're trying to set it up to where you can come to Serenbe and really understand what the principles are. And understand this is not complicated. It is so basic. And once you start unraveling it, say, well, of course. And as people get there, they'll have the passion to move forward, because then you can't imagine doing it any other way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. And I do encourage people, if they get an opportunity to go and visit, have a walk around.
And that's why we have the Inn at Serenbe. It's so that people can come for a short-term stay. You can come for a night. You can come for dinner in any of our restaurants. This doesn't have to be a giant commitment, other than the travel to get here from wherever you are in the world.
It's wonderful. I just remember, I was going to share a thing actually. I remember because obviously we was at the event, and it finished one of the dinners or whatever, it finished late, and everybody's got like a golf cart that you can rent or you can have when you're going from your house and stuff like that. But I didn't hire one. I just walked. I thought I'll just walk, and it was pitch black. And anywhere else, you would be so scared. You'd be scared of something jumping out of you, with the forest and the woodland that's all around you. I felt so absolutely 100% safe. I can't explain what it was. I don't know if it's because of the goodwill of everybody that's there, but also because the roads are shaped that you can still see around the corners. There is a bit of intrigue, but I went past I don't know what you can't remember what you call it, but there's a big pond with like a duck house, and there were
Yes,
toads or frogs or whatever it was going work, work.
singing.
Yeah. And it was the most wonderful, and the moon was bright, and it was a lovely clear night, and I was looking at all the stars, and it was breathtaking. And the dark skies as well there, because you don't have the light pollution. And we haven't really spoken about your sustainability credentials here, but there's no light spill. I don't know what you've done there, but it's brilliant. You can see
All the light has to be directed down to the foot and the footpaths, which is where it's intended to be. And then all of our lights are interesting pieces of art, sculpture, and so all those things. But I would suggest you felt that because would it be safe to say you felt embraced?
Yeah.
Embraced by nature and the built environment because it was always right there. You could see it.
Mm,
You had the feeling of being wilderness, and yet you could see the lights. You knew where you could go,
yeah.
where
That's it.
people were there.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. You were far enough away to feel like you're in the middle of nature, but you are still close to civilization, as it were. It's a perfect synergy. It's a perfect biophilic. I'm not going to go on. I could go on and on and on and on. It's just absolutely wonderful. Um, I mean, I don't want you to kind of spill the beans, but I know you've got lots and lots of plans for the future. But I presume there's kind of things on the horizon, are there? Just before we talk about your book, for instance. So.
Well, absolutely. It's a constant unraveling of things that are essential for a community.
Mm.
We've had a small school that's now expanded, and we finally 2 years ago built the first buildings in a full campus. Uh, so there's 250 children in the first two buildings, and two more buildings on the drawing board. So this incredible educational campus, and it's for children 6 weeks to 12th grade. We call it Cradle to Cap.
Ah, yeah.
Uh, and now we'll be announcing. So we are spilling the bean, so to speak. But it's not necessarily a secret, but it hasn't been officially announced that we will be breaking ground early next year on a aging in place campus, and this is a 7-acre campus. With 97 units and commercial and clubs and all that. And it's right across the street from the school campus that I just mentioned. And so, one of the big things I've seen, and I think it's been obvious through the pandemic, is there's a tendency to separate our elders and our children. And it's a lot of rules, conditions, attitude that's all under the umbrella of safety, protecting them.
Mm,
But I think we have put both of those groups of our population in what I call prisons.
yeah.
Generally, the seniors are in gated, locked communities, and
Mm,
our children are in gated, locked playgrounds.
yeah.
And so at Serenbe, you saw
Yeah.
the free range kids
I know.
and now uncaged elders. So that's one thing is we're really coming back, and this was not unusual 100 years ago.
Mm,
We lived multi-generational.
mm,
And so we're doing a number of things to really reinforce multi-generational living. And of course, the school and the aging in place right across from, and they'll be connected and there'll be a lot of interplay between the two. So that's one of the huge things. We have because of the interest of visiting Serenbe, we have a larger hotel on the drawing boards that hopefully we'll be announcing towards the end of 2026, early 2027. So that's in active design, and it's 110 rooms with a lot of conference facilities, so people can bring their groups here
right.
and what have you. Being so close to um, the airport, it's the most connected airport to the world capitals. We're that great place that people can fly from all over the world nonstop. And then we're just a short 25-minute ride, as you saw.
Mm,
And so it makes us a great destination
mm,
for whatever kind of meeting you might be having, corporate, family reunions, or what have you.
yeah.
So we have to get the facilities that can accommodate all those people. Also, throughout our city, 60 square miles, we have a lot of people now opening their own bed and breakfasts and
Okay.
things. So you can it's really affected the entire area and the agricultural movement, not just our farms now, but now we have what we call modern day homesteaders. They're stepping off the corporate treadmill or finding in their retirement they actually are touching back into the land and helping fill in the gaps in our local food systems.
Yeah, exactly. Because you also have a farm there, don't you? You
We
have,
do. We have a farm.
yeah.
It's a nonprofit teaching farm,
Mm,
and so we have the farmers market every Saturday, pop up market during the middle of the week, an active CSA program, And then they, of course, supply fresh vegetables to many of our restaurants.
It's lovely. It just feels like, I think that was the thing as well that's really struck me. It was all about well-being. It changed my mindset. I have to say, I've come back. I mean, I've been struggling with diets and all this kind of thing, like we all are, but it changed my mindset. I know the summit did as well, and the conferences, the speakers, and everything there. But actually, being in Serenbe has changed my mindset to
Eh,
be about focusing on well-being and wellness for me.
We, we see there that's what touches my heart. Just
Yeah,
anyone who says it's changed, just
yeah,
a visit here
yeah,
changes your outlook, and many
yeah,
times changes lifestyle.
yeah,
And our kids here, they understand the seasonality of
yeah,
foods. See, with blueberry bushes at every crosswalk and banks of figs that everybody can just pick.
yeah,
But but that is one of the greatest community assets. But also the kids see that when the service berries, they know that the blueberries, which everyone looks forward, are going to follow, and then after that the figs, and so they see the seasonality. And also with our farms here, a lot of it has never been in a motorized vehicle. It's in the bicycle or carried. They really understand what fresh food tastes like, and they're not going to put up with.
yeah. Exactly. It's that next generation of consumers, consumer demand. I want fresh like I had back then.
That's right.
Absolutely. I do want to talk about your and I'm going to have you back on definitely to talk about your book, and delve down into it, but also to talk about the aging in place and all the other good stuff. Because I know the school as well has got like a side that's opened out onto nature. The actual design of the buildings is really interesting. I remember walking past the school and all the kids were playing outside, but they weren't. They were actually having a class outside. That's what I thought first of all. I'm like, oh, they're playing. And I know the teacher's there and they were actually engaged in the class. It was so beautiful and really inspiring. Well, let's talk about your book. Let's talk about your new book, which I'm going to review for the upcoming architecture edition for the Journal of Biophilic Design, which will be out next month. But your book is called Start in Your Own Backyard. And it's out officially in October. But can you tell us a little bit about it, please? What made just, what's it about? That's
Well, again, it's in the effort to share what we're doing
mm,
with other people, but even more importantly, is to inspire people to take that first step.
yeah.
And I find so many times, especially in this day and time, people are feeling depressed or not hopeful,
Mm,
and we're expecting big government or big corporations to do something different that's going to change our lives. And hopefully, the book will inspire people to just look around them. And if something's bothering you, if something needs changing, look at where you have influence to change. Why spend your time worrying about something you can do nothing about? There's plenty, chances are, at your fingertips in your backyard, whether it's changing how you or your family is going to eat, or your patterns on walking versus driving, or becoming involved in your neighborhood or your condo association. For some, it might be running for local office. We need a lot more women to put themselves forward so that we have a much more balanced governments on local to national levels. And it's not that women aren't getting elected necessarily. Only in America, only 23% of the people who put their name forward for any elected office are female. So what's that culture that how can we change things like that and get more people realizing that they can make a difference, and wherever you have influence, step into that. And for instance, with you, it's the broadcast, the podcast. You're able, you have an audience, and you can influence that audience. So it's just, where is your influence, and step into it. And so that's what the book's really trying to encourage people to do. I use my personal journey, and what we've done at Serenbe is only an example. So this could be applied to whatever you're doing, wherever you're doing it. And that's how we hope to reach people and change the world one backyard at a time.
Well, that's absolutely lovely. I'm really looking forward to reading it, and I reckon it's going to be one of those books that you have to keep revisiting. You read it once, and then you read it again, and then it becomes like an old friend. And it's one of those you probably have to gift to people. Go, look, you can do this. You can make the change as well. You can be the change. I love it. I really love
That
it.
that's what we hope. With the holidays coming up, we hope people think of it as a perfect gift to give to give to various people.
Well,
And we actually laid it out with the idea that you don't have to read it from cover to cover, that it's going to be one of those things you can go back to, you can resource it. And so we hope that it will live on the shelves as a resource book.
yeah, yeah, it's really good. Well, thank you. Well, before I ask you the final magic question, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, the big thank you for actually understanding what we're doing and your willingness or enthusiasm to share it with your audience and anyone you talk to. We really appreciate that.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. I think it's worth sharing and it's a beautiful place. So yeah, I do encourage people to. I'm going to put links and everything that goes with the spiel with the podcast so people can come along. They can book, they can go to the inn, they can find out about you and about the book and everything else. So then, and I'm desperate to ask you this final question. There's this final magic question that I ask everybody who comes on this podcast. If you could paint the world, Steve, with a magic brush of biophilia, what would it look like?
It would look very much like our nature.
Mm.
Right now, you have a beautiful landscape behind you. So clearly, that's that's the brush that you relate to. And I think if we each think about the ideal place in nature, not removed from civilization, not disconnected, but in embracing nature, it would be a very different world. If we made all of our decisions understanding how we might be affecting the global health, it affects individual health. The key thing about biophilic design, it's all living systems are connected. And if we could all just remember, whatever you do, whether to your backyard or to your neighborhood, you are affecting you and your future generations.
Thank you for listening to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast.